dental podcast,
where real people, real stories,
and real life come together.
This is the Life and Dentistry podcast.
Three, two, one. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Life and Dentistry podcast.
What's up, guys?
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Oh man, that deep voice. That's a new voice right there.
Yeah, new voice. So we got a new guy on the show tonight, and he'll be on the show quite often coming up in the future. So we got Mr. Josh George on with us today.
JG.
I'm here. Happy to be here. I'm supposed to be in Alaska right now, but I had a series of unfortunate events and mishaps yesterday at the airport, and so my
Is it because of the hurricane?
No. Maybe it had something to do with that and the alignment of the moon, but it wasn't a direct correlation to what happened yesterday.
So you had to come back and do dentistry instead of being in Alaska right now.
Yeah, John Wesley called me and said, "Hey, we want you on the podcast." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll cancel this trip and I'll get on the podcast with y'all."
Hey, anything for the Life and Dentistry podcast.
Well, that was really, really dumb.
So what happened? So you were supposed to be in Alaska, and so what actually kind of went haywire?
So I had to. I drove through the night Monday evening. I left East Tennessee about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Drove 4.5 hours to Nashville. Got to the airport and was having trouble with the check-in kiosk, and so I had to wait for the ticket window to open at 4 o'clock, and my flight was leaving at 5, like departing at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And so boarding started at 4:20. There was a group of individuals who could not get the kiosks working, and that you could tell they weren't U.S. citizens and that their primary language was not English. And so that caused a holdup. And so by the time I could check in, because the plane started boarding at 4:20, I tried to check in like right at 4:20, and it said I missed my check-in window. So then I had to go up to the ticket counter, wait in line there. Long story short, it was about 4:35 before I could talk to someone, and I said, I missed my check-in. Can I get my boarding pass and make a sprint for the gate? And she said, "No, they're already boarding. You can't do that." And so I was supposed to catch my first leg from.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So long story short, it just led into a series of events where I was going to miss my flight from Nashville to Chicago to get on my flight to Anchorage. And then the other flight to Chicago that morning was delayed by an hour. So I still couldn't catch up to it. And I couldn't get to Kodiak, Alaska in the time that I needed to get my charter to Katmai. And so I just ended up having to cancel the whole trip, unfortunately.
Why couldn't you leave like the next day or something?
Well, Alaskan Airlines was actually really great. They did everything they could, but the issue was getting from Kodiak to Katmai and trying to line up the charter at the same time. I couldn't get there. I wasn't going to be able to get there before the charter left at 12:30. I couldn't get to Kodiak until 4:30. So it was just a series of things that, like I said, kind of got set in motion yesterday morning and just couldn't get corrected.
So what were you going to be doing in Alaska?
So I was going to be going to the Wilderness Lodge in Katmai with my dad. My brother and I were actually going to switch out in the middle of the week, and then some family friends of ours. And you're in, I believe Katmai is a national park, and it's also kind of like a wildlife refuge. And so there's a lot of grizzly bears, moose, wolf packs, eagles, all kinds of stuff. And it's just kind of animal observation where you go out in the wilderness and you see these bears and these wolves and these whales and all this stuff up close and photograph them and just be right in the middle of them.
I hate that you missed it, man.
Yeah, it was a once in a lifetime trip, so it was pretty devastating. But
dang, I hate that.
Alaska it'll always be there, but this was going to be a special trip with my dad and all that, so it was just kind of a pretty big blow.
Well, maybe y'all can try to make it happen one more time.
Yeah, that's the plan. If anything, it's kind of inspired me to be more motivated and try to make myself as successful as possible. So, in the future I can say, hey, we're going to go to Alaska pay for the trip, take the time off work when I need to take time off, and so it's trying to turn a negative into a positive. But
You can just take your private jet to Alaska next time.
that's right.
As long as I can hitch a ride.
Yeah.
Boys, I'm headed out of town tomorrow because I'm running from a hurricane.
Oh, Irma.
Irma's coming in
Irma's
fast
coming
and furious.
So it's a Category 5 now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd actually seen, someone will have to fact check this, but I actually saw that the dimensions of the hurricane itself is about the size of Georgia and Alabama
Yeah, no,
combined.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
3 times the width of Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, there's one model that showing it's about the most accurate that they're thinking it's going to go is the east coast of Florida, and it's going to plow right into where Georgia juts out a little bit, right where St. Simons is, and I'm only an hour from there. So yeah, it could get pretty bad come Sunday, Monday.
Yep, up through South Carolina. So I'm going to take off first thing in the morning, as they're talking about closer to when the hurricane's supposed to actually hit here. If you try to get out, maybe Saturday, something like that, the traffic's going to be so bad. I mean, where I live is technically an island. And so you have to go across bridges to get over to the mainland of Florida. And, I mean, to try to get across there when everybody's trying to get out at the same time, you may not even make it out. So
I've already seen some pictures that people's posted of 75, and it's backed up already in places.
yeah.
So you better. It's probably a good idea you're getting out tomorrow.
And I'm going to leave about probably 3 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully there's not much traffic at that time, and just try to shoot as quickly as I can.
So when does it make landfall? What is it, Saturday?
Yeah, I think Miami, it's supposed to hit Miami like end of Friday, beginning of Saturday, and then work its way up.
I'll be on St. Simons watching the Georgia Notre Dame game Saturday if they hadn't evacuated everybody. So
I'm not sure that's the best place to be on Saturday.
it's not going to hit us hard till Monday. So
Oh, okay.
I'll get out of there late Saturday, early Sunday. I might just ride it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
Let us know how that goes.
So, what kind of weeks have you all had in the dental office?
It's been pretty good. Pretty good. Today was my first official day where I had the only procedure that I did besides check hygiene was composite, 2 surface composites.
That's a long day.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, it was. And they were like, so like I almost every person that I seen today, it was number 4 and number 5. And it was like number 4, MO, 5 DO. So it was,
Oh, yeah.
I hate doing those because it's, like trying to restore that, trying to get the context right.
Oh, yeah.
Field, and it just, isolation today was a problem. So it was needless to say, it was a pretty frustrating day, but I survived. But
What kind of isolation do you use, John?
so we use the Isolite, and that's my best friend.
Wait, explain. What is that again? Explain that, because we don't have that.
You don't have the Isolite?
ISO light?
Yes.
Well, explain it. If I isolate anything, it's just with a rubber dam.
Well, I mean, so like it's pretty much, it's like a 3-in-1 combination. You got
John Wesley's got that fancy stuff.
Yeah,
we're-
fancy guy in Tennessee.
we're the high rollers.
Golly.
But it pretty much it retracts the tongue. It's got a piece that goes out on the cheek, and it's the suction, and it's got a bite block together.
Oh, I think
a
I
big
remember
rubber.
seeing that in dental school somewhere. I've never
I don't
used
know
that.
if did we have that at UK? I don't remember seeing that at UK.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Do you like it?
When I first used it, I did not. It's kind of tough for like say if you're working on number 2, number 15, it's tough for those second molars. But I mean, first molar forward, it's my best friend, even for crown preps. I mean, if it's the patient, if they're having trouble staying open, I mean, just pop that thing in, and the cheek's protected, the tongue's protected, like it's.
And you still use an assistant or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have Isovacs. I don't think we have any that have the actual light, but it does have, it retracts, and then it has the high volume suction.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have any of that
have
fancy
the light.
stuff.
That's what we use in our office too. Is the Isovac.
See,
Yeah.
Scotty, you don't need that because y'all just take impressions, so there's no need to. You don't need that.
Because we take impressions. I hadn't seen PVS material since.
Scan it, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say. I hadn't taken a single impression since I got out of dental school.
That's a Georgia special right there. Yeah.
So I had a little situation today that so I was doing a bunch of extractions, and one tooth I was taking out originally, we hadn't planned on taking it out, but when I went to do the extractions, I was looking at it and I was like, well, so originally when we had talked about doing the extractions, it had been a few months back, and the guy had canceled a couple times, and finally got him in today. And by now there's another tooth that really needed to come out. I probed around it, and it's really deep probing depths. There was endo that had been done on it, but no coverage. The access was still open. You could see gutta percha there. It had decay on the buccal. I mean, it just needed to be taken out. And then I took it out, and the guy, he wasn't all there, but then again, he knew what was going on, and he kept asking me, how many teeth am I pulling? How many teeth am I taking out? I want to see what they look like. You're only taking out the ones that are at the gums and all that. Well, I had taken out this other one that wasn't originally on the plan. And then I was thinking, like, man, I should have done something before I took that tooth out, told him we needed to take it out, what the situation was before I just took it out. So, it started to think about consent, started thinking about what do you say to a patient in that situation. A tooth really needs to come out. You have the x-ray proof, plus you know what the tooth looks like, but you haven't actually had that conversation with the patient about that one tooth, and you're in the process of taking out 10. What does that look like for y'all as far as consents, and what conversation do you have before you take the tooth out?
So you're saying the patient you had planned already to take, say, 10 teeth out, and you took 11 out because the 11th one needed to come out, but it wasn't like technically on the plan?
Yeah.
I mean, for us, really, it's just a conversation in that kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like if it's, say, if we've discussed 10 teeth coming out and there's one more, like we wouldn't really like do another consent for that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of be just, hey, there's this tooth here. If it's bad enough, I might show them like a picture with the intraoral camera, but we don't like really kind of do another like add-on consent necessarily, like unless they have questions about finances or something like that,
That's essentially what we do. I just have radiographic evidence, and I'll show them if they want to see it. And then, of course, we document that all in the notes, but that's essentially what we do as well.
Yeah, I made sure I wrote down in the note a lot about that tooth specifically, why I ended up extracting it and everything.
Was he fine after the procedure, or?
Yeah, at the end, I actually talked to him about it and got it in the computer at the end, and just told him, the situation, and told him there was one other tooth and why it needed to come out and all that. And he ended up being fine, but who knows, the next person, if that were to happen, be like, well, we didn't even talk about that. It wasn't broken down as bad as the others. I didn't want that tooth out. And next thing you know, you got problems.
Yeah, it's something that I kind of catch myself doing a whole lot now, maybe more than I did in dental school. Is, I mean, I always explain stuff to the patient, but, we would always do like specific consent forms and like go step by step. I kind of catch myself in conversation with the patients at the practice where I'm like, even if, let's say we're doing a crown prep on a tooth, I've actually like brought up in conversation, like, okay, this tooth might need a root canal in the future. If it's like a big one, or if there's a lot of, if it's maybe a unique situation, even though I'm like, we're probably far from the nerve, it's not probably going to need endo. I kind of catch myself really kind of making sure they understand, even though like it's not a big deal, I know there's a chance, and I kind of like tell them that. Mm-hmm. And I found I've gotten pretty good responses from that. Like, even though it doesn't happen, it's like you're giving them like all the options in worst case scenario. You know, instead, I guess what I'm saying is instead of them just reading a form, you're like, okay, this
Mhm.
is, and not step by step everything, but you're kind of like the big things that would kind of be sort of life changing or kind of financially would catch somebody off guard, you know. And I've had good results with that. What about you, Scotty?
I mean, again, about the same thing. You know, if I'm ever doing a filling or anything that's going to be close, I go ahead and tell the patient, you know, there's a chance that we could get into the nerve. And if not, you may still have some sensitivity, and down the road, you may need endo. So I try and explain everything, and I've had a lot of good experiences with that too. And I just make sure the patient understands, and they acknowledge that. And then we we put that in the notes.
So what are y'all doing right now? Let's say 14 needs to be extracted. Patient comes in for an exam, or say that just say it's for an exam, and then you decide to take that tooth out that day. It needs to be taken out. It's non-restorable. What do you say to the patient, and what's your procedure before you actually start the process of taking the tooth out?
So I've actually encountered that a couple times now. So we always take an X-ray if someone's having a toothache that comes in like that, or even if it's a new patient that is getting an exam, and we just take a normal series of X-rays for that. And we see something. I'll explain what I see on the X-ray, why it's not restorable, or why maybe the long-term prognosis is questionable, and why it's questionable, and then let them make that decision if they want to have it taken out, or if they want to invest all the money that may be necessary to fix that, then it could still fail down the road. But I think as long as you explain everything clearly so they can understand it and understand why that tooth either needs to come out, or why it may not be the best decision to invest a lot of money into that tooth. A lot of times I haven't had any trouble getting them to sign the consent. I'll explain, okay, if you do decide to take it out, you'll experience some discomfort for a few days. The biggest risk for most people is a dry socket. There's some other complications like, nerve issues and not dry sockets, but, causing damage to the adjacent teeth and fillings and things like that. So as long as they're aware of that up front, then you've done your job as far as I'm concerned as the provider. And I try to paint it so that they can experience this, but a lot of times they don't. So if they don't, you look like a hero, and if you do, then they knew that going in, and so it's something that they expected beforehand.
So you always get written consent?
Yeah, so my assistant is great at her job, and so we actually have a laminated form that lists all the consent, and then we hand write in with a dry erase marker what teeth we're taking out, and any other information we need to add specific to that case, and then we scan that into their chart. And so if we're going along in a situation like yours where we're taking out 10 teeth and we decide to take out an 11th, we'll explain this one needs to come out too, show them the X-ray if we need to, and then ask them, are you okay if we add this to the consent form? And as long as they are, we just add it and keep chugging along.
Yeah. Okay. I was talking to the director of the program down here, and we were talking about consent, and he's been called in, I guess, a lot for expert testimony in lawsuits for dentists. And he was saying one of the worst cases he's seen recently was actually failure to probe. He said this dentist was seeing this patient for 20 years and didn't hardly do any perio probing and missed periodontitis. She ended up having to go to a new dentist. She moved cities or something. She got this new dentist. The new dentist probed and found all these deep probing depths and was like, you got a lot of teeth that we're going to have to pull out, because there's no way to save it. You've lost enough bone that there's nothing we can do. And she ended up suing the previous dentist, and the dentist went in and falsified records and went in and put probing depths for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And ended up telling his lawyer that he had done that. And in court, the lawyer was like, basically like, we give up. Like, he's falsified the records. and so we have no case. Basically, the lady that was suing could get almost anything she wanted at that point.
Well, even if he would have gotten away with that, I mean, that's basically 20 years of supervised neglect.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But it just made me think today because of that, and then him telling me, a couple stories. It just like, an extra minute for a consent or something is huge.
Yeah.
Just to cover your tracks, and he's like, just do the right things. And he said he knows dentists that assistants, their jobs are to get the consents. And there's one dentist he said he knows, if the assistant did not get the consent when they go to extract the tooth, then she's fired that day.
Oh, wow.
That's how extreme he is with consents. I mean, that's pretty intense to me. But he was just telling me he's somebody he knows that's how they handle it in their practice. So I don't know. It's just been something on my mind today.
Yeah, and I can see being in, practice for a couple months now, and when you're having a fast-paced day, it's easy to just go in.
Yeah, exactly.
Assume your assistant's done her job, and then you get going, and then, they do the note, and it's easy to become complacent and not detail-oriented in the sense of keeping records. And so I've tried to get in the habit at the end of the day of going through all my notes at the end of the day, making sure everything's well documented, and same with the consents.
Yeah. I think it's worth it, just that extra time, extra effort, and then you can sleep a little better at night,
Yeah, I agree.
So what else did y'all have come up this week?
So something I ran into today, and I've seen a handful of times now, and I see this a lot on older patients that have long span bridges, or even just 3-unit bridges that have recurrent decay underneath the margins, and they're on fixed incomes, don't have a lot of money, but they have all this money already invested into their mouth. And if you remove one of these long span bridges, you're setting them up for poor function in the future and more problems down the road. And I've found myself a handful of times now trying to drill and fill along these margins, which I feel is kind of substandard treatment. And I'll explain that to the patient beforehand, that this isn't really the standard of care, but just to buy you some extra time on this bridge, we can try to fill underneath this. It may or may not work. It may even make the problem worse. But you have all this money invested, and we'll have that conversation where they'll say they can't, afford a new 6-unit bridge, and so they may not even be able to afford a partial if we take the bridge out. And so I find myself kind of doing what I feel isn't necessarily bad dentistry, because I've explained the situation, but not good dentistry either. And so I don't know if that's something y'all have encountered and how you all handle those situations.
Man, I can't, I've been in the practice now. This is September, so pretty much 2.5 months, really, two full months for sure. And there has been countless times that, I've seen that, and that, like you said, like it's that, it's the 3-unit bridge, the 5-unit. I've seen 7-unit bridges where like almost every tooth is kind of starting to have that recurrent decay coming on. And like you want to so bad just say we need a new bridge. Like we need to take this off, clean it out, and kind of get a really fresh, clean platform. But when the patient, it's not just like there's so many different factors to take into consideration. Like and it seems like a lot of those patients for me have been kind of older patients. So, like if it's like an 80-year-old lady with a 7-unit bridge or something, and you tell that she needs a new bridge, I mean, honestly, you could probably make the argument that might not be the best thing for her, the best treatment for her, or him, whoever it is, you know what I mean? Like so, I mean, I've done a lot of that patching, and it's like you feel like, man, like it's not the best treatment, but when it comes to maintaining stuff, I think.
Well, and it all comes down to their finances too. I've ran into a lot of that. I always I'll always present the standard of care, the best treatment possible, but very rarely do the patients fully agree because they want to, but they can't just because of financial reasons. So, it doesn't make you feel great, but in their situation at the time, that's really the only option that they have.
Yeah, but too, like, I think that even though you could probably argue that that's like, you can argue that it's not the standard of care, like the best treatment, but I think we can also argue that it's, in some people's circumstances, it can be the standard. Like,
it's better not having anything.
Right, it's better than just letting the decay go.
Done, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of ties back into what we were just talking about with consents and documentation and all that. I guess at what point do you feel like you're either crossing a line or you're putting yourself at risk? Even if it's an older patient, you feel like you're doing them right by trying to extend the life of that bridge. But say they go to another dentist and that dentist looks at it and says, this is bad dentistry. They shouldn't have done this and all that. And then now you might be on the line for doing something that you thought you were helping the patient out. So I haven't found the line yet as to where I felt super uncomfortable doing it, but I never feel good when I do it, even though, like I said, I explained to the patient and say this, could even make things worse. But yeah, it's something that has kind of eaten at me a couple times where you just don't feel good about it and you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Well, and hopefully, obviously there are some things you can do that are just stupid that a dentist would be like, man, whoever saw you previously should not have done that. But things like patchwork underneath a 5-unit bridge or a 3-unit bridge, any dentist out there, that's been practicing for 10, 20 years has most likely done that plenty of times themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, people they've got to have something over their teeth there, and they can't afford for another multi-unit bridge. And if you can get under there and remove the decay and place some amalgam under there, you'd think, if not all, a large majority of dentists have done that more than once,
Yeah, and I know I've seen, I've seen some new patients in the practice, and they've had work done in other places, and I've kind of caught myself like when I would first see something, and this is not a knock against anyone. It's like when you see something that you're like, well, it might not look ideal. It's like you automatically want to think like, why would they do that? Or why would you not have done this or this? But then like now that I've been into practice and I've been out for 2.5 months now, I'm thinking, okay, my thought process is a little different now. It's like, okay, I'm not going to judge that because I don't know what the circumstance was. I don't know what was going on. We're talking about patching, but like I'm real like cautious to judge when it comes to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I just saw on Facebook, I'm watching our buddy Joe, and he's got whipped cream or something all over his face. So today is Joe Blaylock's birthday. So shout out to Joe.
Man, we forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I pulled this up, and he's at some Mexican restaurant right now with whipped cream or something all over his face with a sombrero on.
So no excuse. He should be here with us right now.
Yeah, here. Can you hear it?
Oh yeah, I hear Joe's laugh.
I was gonna.
Who would know? Who would have thought that Joe would be somewhere eating right now? So.
Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
And we got old Lou's birthday's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So, John Wesley, you meeting up with him to eat some wings tomorrow night?
No, man, I don't think so. I'm gonna have to miss out.
You got a baby to take care of.
Yeah, I got to take care of the baby.
You got to milk that baby?
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, let me ask y'all this. So has anyone gotten past the point to where you're not throughout the week, somebody doesn't ask how old you are?
I still get it every day.
It really hasn't happened.
And it's actually I'm getting frustrated by it. but I try and just play it off.
I don't know if it's the facial hair or what. I hadn't gotten it once.
I had a patient yesterday,
Well, I think
a hygiene check. I sit down, she looks at me, she's like, "What are you, 12?" And I try and I laugh, and then like she's like real serious. She looks at me, she's like, "No, I'm serious. Like, how old are you?" I'm like, 28. I'm about to be 29. She's like, "You look way too young to be doing dentistry. I hope you know what you're doing."
You should have told her your mom packed your lunch and drove you to work.
Yeah, I should have. Golly, it just kind of got under my skin a little bit just because I've been getting it so much. And, I mean, it's understandable. I understand, especially in the small town where I'm at right now. It's just most people are so used to seeing just an older dentist, and all of a sudden they see a younger guy come in, and it's, they're taken back by it. It's like, I have it every day, multiple times.
Hey, just grow that beard back out, man. That's what you need.
Yeah.
I just picture Scotty like a cartoon where he turns around and you see that line of red go from his neck to his face, and then start seeing steam come out of his ears.
That's what it felt like.
And then he starts yelling, Lauren. So, hey, speaking of Lauren, how's that going with it's a pretty sweet gig that you're having your wife work at the front desk in the practice you're working at. That must be nice.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. She's learning the ins and outs of it. So when I do finally take over, she's going to know the ins and outs of the office and all that. And she's actually been training, in all aspects of the practice. So it's good. It's good.
So what's she doing? Is she's like at the front desk right now?
At the front desk, yeah. She's just been still learning, scanning documents in and checking patients in, and she's starting to train on some, other aspects of it as far as the accounting side goes and stuff. But it's good though.
That's perfect. So, John Wesley, you have anything interesting happen this past week?
Oh man, honestly, no. It's actually been it's not been a crazy week or anything. I think I mentioned earlier, today was my first day of doing just nothing but composites, so that was kind of a nightmare, But it's been a pretty slow and really a boring week, honestly.
Have you learned anything since being in private practice to make class 2s easier or more efficient?
Well, I don't know about easier, but more efficient. I mean, for one, obviously having an assistant, is a huge help.
Yeah.
Not just doing it on your own, having to like hold like you're reaching for something, holding something, putting, and I can feel now I'm getting like a really good routine. So it's like they're learning me and I'm learning them. It's like, so now when we're doing a certain procedure, it's like, I know and they know exactly like how I function and what they're doing. And it's like as soon as I'm doing this, like they're handing me this, and it's just like it's kind of getting to the point now where I don't even take my eye off the tooth unless it's something kind of that I've got to change big time,
Mm-hmm.
But today I was doing I don't know if you guys have kind of ran into this, not really a problem, but talking about efficiency. So I did a lot of number 4 and number 5s today. Like I had probably 3 or 4 patients that it was 4 and 5. And it was like number 4 was an MO, 5 was a DO. And of course they were composites. So I call it the Garrison kit, but it's not Garrison. It's another brand, but it's the same concept. It's the Garrison kit that we had in dental school. And that's what we use to restore it, which I'm assuming probably a lot of people use that. But
yeah, we have it.
It's got the flexible wedge, it's got the little metal bands, and you got the little hook band that goes the last thing you put on,
Yeah.
And when I first was doing it, I hadn't necessarily, like I had done a lot of class 2s, but I hadn't done a whole lot like side by side and like really learned how to be super efficient with it. And something that I started doing in private practice was doing these class 2s, like in this situation, MO4, DO5 at the same time, like restoring them at the same time, which you guys may have been doing it like that. I was initially doing it like individually because I couldn't get the bands to hold. Like I couldn't, when I put them together, either one would fall out and I couldn't hold them in. So I'd kind of do one tooth and kind of get angled right, set it, restore it, and then do the other one. And now it's like with this kit we've got, like I put them basically both in. It's like my efficiency has just went through the roof as far as getting it done.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have been doing it like that. I was doing it individually, and I mean it was a game changer for me doing it side by side, like at the same time, restoring them together.
Yeah, that we use that same system in our office, and I've kind of been the same way. I feel like I've gotten a lot more efficient at not having to take my eye off the tooth, using my mirror and getting my hand-eye coordination with the mirror a lot better. And then depending on how wide the box is and what space there is interproximally, if I can get the two foils in at the same time in a wedge, that increases the efficiency like by twofold easily, rather than do one, then try to do the next one without bumping the restoration that you just did. But if you can clean everything out at once and fill everything at once, I mean, you can do both in the time it would take you to do one and then switch and then go to the other.
Yeah. And like, I hate restoring them side by side, but I love drilling them side by side.
Yeah.
You're not worried about, you're cutting box to box and they're side by side. So you're not having to be careful as much. It's like
you're playing bumper cars.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've had a lot of 3 teeth in a row, in the same quadrant, restoring this week. Today at 29, 30, and 31. 29 was a DO, 30 was an MOD, and 31 was an MO. So I prepped them all together, and in that situation, the MOD, if it's in the middle, I've just been using a Toffelmeyer, and I just go ahead and restore that and make sure I get all the margins right, and then I just go back with the Garrison or your sectional matrix and restore the others, and I'll put those in at the same time. I'll have 2 rings in, and I found that's been pretty good.
If y'all have smaller class 2 lesions, are you doing more slot preps or box preps?
I just kind of go by feel. If I feel like I've got good walls and a good tight fit, I'm fine doing just a slot. But if it's the box is kind of more ovoid rather than square, and I don't think it's going to have good retention by itself, I'll do a little groove on the down the straight occlusal.
Yeah,
just
I've yet to do just a straight slot prep. Pretty much all of mine that I've done up till now is, there's still some decay on the occlusal, so I'll still do your traditional class 2
I think
prep.
my least favorite part of all of dentistry is a class 2 prep and restoration.
Yeah. I'm actually I'm trying to come up with a right angle burr so that I can, if I have 2 adjacent, I can just pack them all together and then just make some kind of right angle burr that you can fit some super floss underneath there and floss in between.
Yeah. Class 2s are tough. I agree with you, Cole. That, and I've had a lot of trouble with cutting crowns on number 2 and number 15. Those are so hard. I had one on 15 yesterday, the hardest crown I've ever cut. And it was beside a recently done crown, and of course the lady's cheek, it would not stretch, and of course the tooth was kind of shifted buccally, so trying to get the cheek off the tooth at all was just almost impossible. I mean, it was a nightmare. I got it done, but it took longer than I wanted, and it was frustrating. I was sweating by the end of that.
I've noticed that too. It seems like I've had a lot more difficulty cutting preps in private practice than it has been in school. I'm not sure what the reason is yet. I don't know if it's the systems we use here or what, but it seems like the cheeks don't stretch as much down here, and the tongues are bigger.
Yeah, I'm noticing all that. And for me, like using the mirror is fine when I'm just prepping teeth for restorations, but I'm still having a really difficult time cutting crowns using indirect vision, trying to get your angulation right. It's tough.
I'm gonna be honest. I still use some direct vision. I mean, if like,
I use as much as I can.
I can't
the detriment of my neck and back, but
yeah, I mean, I can't help it. It's like I know, and like I feel it. I mean, I'm like I don't need to be doing this.
Me too.
But I just, if you're doing number 2, you're doing 15, and it's like you can't see it. And like the distal is a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
take that margin around. You're just like you could honestly just close your eyes and probably get just as close trying to see it. I mean, because it's just It's all
But
feel. Yep.
to me, the mesial, when it's butted up against the other tooth, just trying to get through that without nicking the adjacent tooth is so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough.
I've had two really challenging crown cases these past couple weeks. One was a lady that had a small mouth to begin with, but she also had scleroderma. So
Ooh.
she couldn't hardly open at all, and you could not stretch her cheeks whatsoever. And it was, I believe it was upper right 2 or 3. So that took a really long time. The other was a patient that had oral cancer. She had an adenocarcinoma, and so they had to remove some of the muscular components of her jaw. And so when she opened, her jaw just naturally deviated to the right. And so it made it really difficult because I was cutting number 15. And so the coronoid process was right on top of the tooth, and their jaw naturally shifted to the right anyways. So the cheek was rolling over, had a really hard time getting isolation. I could get on the buccal, make a wall. I could get on the lingual, make a wall, get on the mesial, make a wall, and same thing on the distal. But then trying to connect all 4 of those together, it ended up taking about 4 hours to cut and temporize. So it was your first crown prep you cut in dental school.
Yeah.
I was really happy. The patient was really patient with me. She was very understanding. And so she was a great patient. And I told her, I said, this is taking a really long time, but we just want to do this right. And so she was really grateful. And the prep ended up actually turning out really nice. It just took forever to cut it.
I've noticed that I was thinking in private practice that it would be, you think people are paying more money than they are if they're going to dental school or something. And I was kind of like, okay, like everyone that I see is going to expect super quick work. They're going to expect no errors, no mistakes. You know what I mean? Like that, just perfection. But it's kind of been it's been just like, it's like honesty, like being genuine. Like if you're telling people like, okay, like constantly communicating, letting them know what's going on, and you're sincere, like people would appreciate that no matter what environment it is,
Yeah, I think everything we talked about, not to change the subject, but to go back to the age thing, I think that's been the most frustrating for me since starting private practice above all else. I've had a few cases where I've done some surgical extractions and I've done a couple bone grafts and stuff. And of course the procedures went well. And the head doc, he'd supervise, come in, make sure everything was good, procedure went as planned, perfect. And of course you notify the patient, you're going to have post-op pain and all that. But by, next day or two, they're having pain like we explained. And because the young guy in the practice did it, the new guy, they all of a sudden think that, he must not have did something right. So they call up for their, their re-eval, post-op re-eval. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I want to see that young guy. I want to see the head guy. And it was nothing that I did. It's just my age. And because they were in some pain or discomfort, which if you're laying a flap and surgically extracting 2 teeth and doing a bone graft and doing a bunch of sutures, they're going to be in some pain.
Oh, yeah.
But just because they felt that because of my age, they're all of a sudden assuming that I didn't do something right. And I want to see the other guy.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. I mean, it's to be expected, but that's just something that's I'm really having to adjust to, because every patient that I go into and I perform procedure on, I do my absolute best work, or I try to, and have the best intentions for that patient. And I do my absolute best. And if anything goes wrong, we explain it. But there's been a handful of cases where everything went right and felt great about it. The patient was okay, but because they were in some discomfort, or so they thought that I did something wrong just because I was the new guy, and they want to see the established doc. Yeah, it's just been really frustrating for me.
Man, dentistry is emotionally draining.
It is.
Hey, so to change the subject a little bit, John Wesley and Scotty, y'all about to take off to, what is it, San Francisco? San Diego?
San Francisco.
I've never been to California, so
John Wesley's never flown.
I've never flown commercially.
Yeah, but you jumped out of a plane though.
Yeah.
I've not even been in a
John
plane
Wesley?
yet. Yes, this is my first.
I
flight.
can't wait to see John Wesley in a plane. He might have to have a few fireballs before we get
You
up
worried
there.
about it?
See, I'm excited about it because I know, okay, it's an implant pathway. You know, we're going to get to see some cool stuff and do some cool stuff. I mean, I'm excited about that. I'm excited to get to go with you guys, the three of us that are going plus me, and like it's going to be a cool experience. But I am so dreading the moment that I sit down. Like I can imagine the moment I sit down in that chair in that airplane. And like I look out the window and I see like we're slowly taking off. And I'm like, okay. And once we get in the air, like I did this so bad. I think once I'm in the air, I'll be fine. But it's that buildup. I probably honestly the worst part's going to be the drive to the airport. Probably my stomach's probably going to be just all in knot. You know, it's just I really dread that.
So
Man, it's coming up too. It's only 2.5 weeks away, something like that.
Yeah.
A couple things that would get me at first. Be prepared for. One is that thrust right when you take off. You know, it's going to push you back in your seat. So be prepared for that, and then be prepared for dings. And it's usually like the keep your seatbelt on light. They get dings. So like you could be just soon after you take off, and you start hearing these ding that goes off through the plane. And the first couple of times I was like, what in the world is that? Is that wrong or what? So don't be concerned about any little dings. They're just saying keep the seatbelt on.
Yeah. I'm glad you say that because I'd probably be like freaking out.
And then another thing is the rumbling. Like once you get up in the air, it's when they pull the wheels up into the plane, it makes this rumbling sound, and that got me at first too. So just don't think anything of it.
I'm just going to put headphones in and just keep them in the whole time. Just turn something up real loud and just heavy metal, some rock or something, you know.
Oh, you might not want that. Kenny G or something.
Oh, man.
Some sax.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, though. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun trip. We're going to take some video, some pictures, have some cool stuff to show when we're done for sure.
Yeah, stay tuned to Instagram because we'll definitely do some social media stuff while they're there.
For sure, for sure. Well, hey, Josh, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, good to have you.
I think we'll be seeing a lot more of you now, huh?
Yeah,
So,
this is a good maiden voyage, and looking forward to a lot more episodes.
yeah, man, the life in dentistry, it's growing.
We're growing.
Leaps and bounds. The little family's getting bigger.
Hey, y'all say a prayer for me as I outrun this hurricane, all right?
I will, man. Keep us posted.
Yeah, y'all keep me in your prayers too as I see this thing through in Georgia. So I don't know. They may be evacuating us. There's been hurricanes in the past where they evacuate, you know, because I'm only 3 counties from the coast, you know. So the whole east coast of Georgia, southeast Georgia is already put on a state of awareness. So, I mean, it's only probably 30 minutes away.
The crazy thing that I still just can't believe is they don't know where it's going to make landfall yet for sure. Every time I look at the
wow.
I think a lot of it has to do with
someplace
the islands that it's going over because it could – and, of course, you got these, you know, high and low pressure systems that could push it this way or that way. But I was looking at it earlier today, and it's going to hit Florida, whether it's on the east or west coast, and it's going to go up. And I think it's going to hit Georgia, South Georgia, regardless of where it goes. So
yeah. Well, I know we're kind of we're not really making light about it, but we're kind of joking a bit. But in all seriousness, I mean, it's you guys be safe, and any of the listeners out there that are in the path, you guys be careful and be safe and watch out.
Yeah,
Cole's gonna run the wheels off that Accord trying to outrun this thing.
Yeah, we've already had a bunch of cancellations, and they've already closed our practice down Monday. So at least, but the way it's looking, I may not be working much at all next week. So so hopefully it's not as bad as they're saying it's going to be.
JG, I'm actually hopping on my moped.
That's a solid choice. The Vespa.
Oh man.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you all for tuning in to the episode. This has been awesome. It's been a lot of fun to do. Don't forget to follow our journey through life and dentistry on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Life and Dentistry, and on Twitter at Life and Dent. Be sure to also check out YouTube. We're putting some pretty cool videos up, and we got some pretty cool stuff coming in the future, so be sure to check that out. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at lifeanddentistry@gmail.com. If you haven't done already, be sure to head over to iTunes and give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. That kind of helps us get out there and more people to hear about us, and we can spread the word. Again, thank you all for tuning into the show, because we cannot do this without you guys. And with that, we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
The Dental Podcast,
where real people, real stories,
and real life come together.
This is the Life and Dentistry Podcast.